I genuinely do not seek to stifle robust debate, but this evening the Prime Minister has continually used pejorative language to describe an Act of Parliament passed by this House. And I'm sure that you would agree, Mr Speaker, that we should not resort to using offensive, dangerous or inflammatory language for legislation that we do not like. And we stand here, Mr Speaker, under the shield of our departed friend, with many of us in this place subject to death threats and abuse every single day. And let me tell the Prime Minister that they often quote his words: surrender act, betrayal, traitor, and I, for one, am sick of it. We must moderate our language, and it has to come from the Prime Minister first. So I would be interested in hearing his opinion. He should be absolutely ashamed of himself.
I think, Mr. Speaker, I have to say, Mr. Speaker, I have to say, Mr. Speaker, I've never heard such humbug in all my life. Because the reality is, this is a bill.
Order. I'm just going to start by saying that I am not, and nobody in here is a traitor. They're not ignoring their constituents. They are all in good faith. I was raised thinking that we were the goodies and that over there were the baddies, and what I found when I got here was that everybody pretty much, just in a different way, wants to get to the same conclusion. And I will wager that, more so than the Prime Minister, I spend time in my constituency office loving and laughing with my constituents, no matter what they voted. I don't just want to probe into the idea that we all get abuse, and no doubt we're going to hear a lot of that today, because we all get abuse, and I've had a death threat this week that literally quoted the Prime Minister and used the Prime Minister's name and words in a death threat that was delivered to my staff. So we know that it gets out. What I want to look at today, and what I want answers to today, is when there is a clear strategy to divide. The use of language yesterday and over the past few weeks, such as the surrender bill, such as invoking the war, such as talking about betrayal and treachery, it has clearly been tested and workshopped and worked up, and it is entirely designed to inflame hatred and division.
So I'm in Westminster to interview another Member of Parliament. Now, Jess Phillips was only elected back in May, but she's already made a pretty explosive impact.
I would do anything that I felt was going to make the Labour Party win the next election, because if I don't have that attitude, all I'm doing is colluding with the Tories. If that's making Jeremy better, I'll roll my sleeves up. If that's not going to happen, and I've said that to him and to his staff to their faces, the day that it becomes that you are hurting us more than you are helping us, I won't knife you in the back, I'll knife you in the front.
I get it. It works. It is working. I mean, we're all ambitious. I'm not going to pretend that I'm not ambitious, but I also have a soul. It is not sincere. It is totally planned. It is completely and utterly a part of a strategy designed by somebody to harm and cause hatred in our country.
It's just fucking bullshit. It's fucking bullshit. It's fucking bullshit!
Yeah. When I hear of my friend's murder and the way that it has made me and my colleagues feel, and feel scared, described as humbug, I actually don't feel anger towards the Prime Minister. I feel pity for those of you who still have to toe his line.
The day that it becomes that you are hurting us more than you are helping us, I won't knife you in the back, I'll knife you in the front.
You, the people opposite me, know how appalling it was to describe the murder of my friend as mere humbug. Can I ask everybody to act with calm and dignity in this moment? I want to ask the Prime Minister to apologise.
I have to say, Mr. Speaker, I've never heard such humbug in all my life.
And to tell him that the bravest, strongest thing to say is sorry. It will make him look good. It will not upset the people who want Brexit in this country if he acts for once like a statesman.
I have to say, Mr. Speaker, I've never heard such humbug in all my life.
Calling me names, putting words in my mouth and in the mouth of my dead friend makes me cross and angry. It makes me scared even. But I will not react. The Prime Minister wants me to react so that I join in the chaos that keeps this hatred and fear on our streets.
I won't knife you in the back, I'll knife you in the front.
I simply ask the Minister today to request to the Prime Minister, who's notable by his bravery today, I ask him to ask the Prime Minister to meet with me in private with his advisers and some of my colleagues and my friends from Joe's family so that we can explain our grief and try to make him understand why it is so abhorrent that he has chosen a strategy to divide rather than to lead.
I have to say, Mr. Speaker, I have to say, Mr. Speaker, I've never heard such humbug in all my life.
Well, that was Labour MP Jess Phillips and her colleague Paula Sheriff having a meltdown in the Parliament last week when Parliament returned after the controversial prorogation that the Supreme Court, all 11 of them in unison, decided to deem that prorogation unlawful. I smell a rat there, like many do as well. I mean, isn't there one of them that happened to side with the government? Apparently not. Every last one of them decided it was unlawful. So there we are. So we have a whole establishment, including the judiciary, which is against Brexit and seems to side with Brexit on with the Remainers on everything they have the opportunity to do so. Just much like John Bercow, but that's another story. That's not what this video is about. I just wanted to do a quick video on the whole meltdown after the prorogation, after Parliament returned last week. And I think they thought that the Conservatives, they were really rubbing their hands. It was a real, I mean, it doesn't actually change anything, that prorogation ruling. But it was a moral victory. It was bragging rights, if nothing else. I mean, it will have an impact going forward because I think we're going to end up with all sorts of legislation being taken to the Supreme Courts now as well. It's going to set a new precedent. But it was bragging rights and a moral victory for the Remainers. So they thought that Johnson and the Conservatives were going to come in there, you know, nasal gazing and, you know, feeling under the cosh, and they came out fighting. And good for them. And the reaction that we saw, I mean, unless you've been hiding under a rock for the last 2 weeks, you will have seen the meltdown in Parliament last week. And this particularly female hysteria which has gripped the Parliament by these whinging, yapping, overbearing feminists, it has to be said, in the Parliament, you know, like Paula Sheriff and Jess Phillips. There's a long list of them, sadly. But they didn't like it. They really did not like Boris Johnson coming out fighting last week. And what's going on here? I mean, what's caused this emotional outpouring and this most recent outpouring and outrage by the left and the Remainers and this female hysteria and moral outrage? Well, they're losing. they're terrified, and they're desperate. It's, if you don't like what's been said, attack him who's saying it, and attempt to attack his character and moral integrity, which is laughable considering it's coming from these reprobates and utter hypocrites. And we see this with Trump. His whole presidency has been marred by one scandal after the next, including the current one, where he's, this threat of impeachment with this Ukrainian situation with Joe Biden. I mean, they don't like what he's saying, and he's got the public behind him, so they have to attack the person. That's what they're doing with Johnson, because we have a similar situation over here now where, as they pejoratively refer to it as populism, which is essentially, the public attitude, the public mood, who are sick and tired of the establishment controlling and dominating everything. And that's what they're scared of. And now they have to whinge about the language. As I say, I mean, Jess Phillips, particularly, her performance there, wasn't it cringy? I mean, it was pathetic. I feel embarrassed for the woman. Her inane attempt to take the moral high ground. I mean, you would think it was Mother Teresa had suddenly graced the Parliament. And her pathetic attempts to appear more mature, and as I say, the moral high ground grabbing. I hope the clip and the little bit of editing I did there exposed her and her language about knifing, Jeremy Corbyn, not in the back but in the front, exposes what a total hypocrite she is, and the usual double standards that we see from the left and the Remainers. So they're complaining about the language. So they basically shaft the people, and for the last 3 years they've done everything and anything to thwart Brexit, throwing spanner in the works at every opportunity, at every turn. We've had the whole might of the establishment in Parliament, the media, big business against Brexit, and these hypocrites in the Parliament signed Article 50, agreed to it, and they're both the Conservatives and with Theresa May and the Labour Party at the general election 2017 promised in their campaigns to deliver Brexit. And they shaft the people and they do the complete opposite, and then they whinge about the adjectives which accurately describe them. I mean, these people have the temerity with a straight face to complain about, oh, it's a surrender bill. You can't use that word. It's causing division and it's offensive. It is a surrender bill. And the word betrayal and traitors. Johnson is not coming up with this language. This is what the public are feeling. They are frustrated beyond belief now at what's been happening in Parliament. It's so obvious that democracy in this country is an illusion, and Brexit at least has brought that to the fore. So now they're whinging about the language. We're not even allowed to describe their language or to describe their behaviour. You're not even allowed to moan about it now, according to this. I mean, I couldn't really care less if Boris Johnson believes it or not. The fact is, he's expressing the public mood. And Johnson's personality and quirky charisma, coupled with expressing the truth of the public mood, scares them to death and has them in a state of panic and hysteria, as we saw last week in Parliament. And so they resort to these crybaby, and it must be said, just profoundly hypocritical tactics about the language. Again, language which accurately describes the Benn Bill, the surrender bill, which it's so controversially known now, and language which describes their state and behaviour for the last 3 years and is ultimately the truth. And doesn't the truth hurt? And that's what's really going on here. They're losing, they're terrified, and they're desperate. The truth hurts, and they're now facing Boris Johnson, and whether he means it or not, whether he's genuine or not, he's got his finger on the pulse of the public mood that we're going to get Brexit done, and that the Benn Bill is a surrender bill, and that not delivering Brexit is a betrayal, and that the public think that Parliament are traitors. Suddenly these words are divisive and are inspiring hatred and responsible for death threats. Don't blame Johnson. I mean, I'm not condoning death threats. I don't think anybody should ever receive death threats. It's not the way to go. But it couldn't possibly be that these adjectives are simply true. And they're not from Johnson, but rather Johnson's just expressing the feelings and thoughts and mood of the nation. The media, of course, in the last 5 days have done nothing but cover this language issue. Again, with a slant of taking their side and that largely, you know, this is coming from Johnson and his government, and that it's unacceptable, it's an outrage, and it's also a distraction, and it's this constant, incessant attempt by the far left and the Remainers. Not that all Remainers are far left, but you know the ones who are moaning are for this moral high ground grabbing that they so love to do, and you know, even stooping as low through their desperation to bring the murdered MP Joe Cox into the debate. I mean, there literally is no limits to the despicable nature of these scumbags. I mean, they're total reprobates. These are the same people that label anyone who disagrees with them as Nazis and fascists and racists and haters. And then, you know, they inspire milkshakes to be thrown at Nigel Farage and others. We've seen momentum aggression, Antifa aggression, and outright violence, which never really gets spoken about. And, you know, I saw a statistic recently where Remainers, apparently, I don't know whether it was in London or nationwide, there was some poll done, some percentage, it was a really high percentage of Remainers said they wouldn't even rent a flat out in their house, or they wouldn't share a house, or, you know, or a flat share with someone who voted to leave. I mean, this is the extremity of these people who are always calling people extreme. And this is the hatred of these people who are always calling people haters. And then, of course, oh, it's a cynical strategy. Yeah, like politicians and governments don't have strategies. I mean, it's not that Johnson has a strategy that's a problem for them. It's that it's a strategy that's working. I mean, who cares if it is or it isn't a strategy? It just happens to be in an aberrant situation where the people of this country, what the people of this country want, and he has his finger on the pulse of the public mood. That's the strategy that they don't like. Yes, it's a strategy, but it's what the people in the country are thinking. Even Remainers, most people are just sick and tired of it. This is why this phrase "get Brexit done" is so effective. Because people up and down the country, it's only the Parliament, it's only the media, and it's only a few, I don't know, James O'Brien type listeners, hardcore, you know, London elite types that want this thing to drag on and delay it and delay it. There's no appetite for it up and down the country now. So if it is a cynical, evil strategy, how refreshing that we have this rare situation where a politician's strategy also happens to be what the public want. I mean, as I say, it's irrelevant to me whether he believes it or not. His job is to carry out the will of the electorate, and the result of that referendum, which is what Theresa May was supposed to do, and which both parties ran on in their last general election, promising they would do, and as I say, have done everything and anything since to stop it, and they're still trying to stop it. And the Benn bill, it perfectly accurately describes it, in my opinion, as a surrender bill. They just can't handle it, you know. And if they listen to the double standards and the whinging of Jess Phillips, you know, my heart bleeds, Jess. You know, total and utter hypocrite, and total, you know, the righteous indignation that these people indulge in. I mean, it's really odious. So that's it, basically. You know, they can't handle the truth, so they have to attack Boris Johnson, much in the way that which is, you know, what we've seen with Trump in America. And we've got exactly the same thing here now, as they pejoratively describe it as a populist movement, which is essentially a pushback on their inexorable so-called progressive march to their Marxist utopia. So yeah, they don't like this cynical strategy. And all he's doing is what his government said that they would do 3 years ago. It doesn't matter how much they bemoan the language or how much they hate the adjectives. It doesn't make them any less true. And as I say, that's what they're terrified of. The fact that the narrative reflects and expresses the public mood, and it's been done by Boris Johnson, who certainly has some charisma, and that he's, for whatever his own personal political reasons, he is going down this route of wanting to deliver Brexit. And, you know, just in summary, you know, the language being used in Parliament over the years has been incredibly colourful and heated. It's only an issue now in our modern day cultural Marxist climate with these mouthy, yapping, entitled feminists who, when they don't get their own way for once and are losing the debate, have to resort to this disingenuous, sneaky, tactics of attacking the man when they can't handle that man's message. And it accurately does describe the public mood, and resorting to attacking, to emotionalize the debate. And as I said, they're even, including shamefully bringing the dead politician Joe Cox and into the debate. Really what they're doing is it's an attempt to, it's censorship. We see this with YouTube and social media. When anybody doesn't toe the establishment narrative, they get strikes, they get videos deleted, and you get the little messages. I've had several of them where it's YouTube believes in free speech, and then comes the but and the however. We don't believe in hate speech. And when they're standing up there accusing Boris Johnson of inciting violence, and they've had death threats as a result of his language directly and everything else, it's an attempt to censor, and it's basically saying this is hate speech. And they do this when they are losing control, and it's a sign of their desperation. So anyway, I just wanted to do a quick video because I haven't really done that many videos on Brexit. I've covered it massively on my radio show. If you want to tune in there, it's Thursday night at 9 till 10 p.m. in the UK, and it's 4 till 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I'm also on revisionmedia.org just after that show from 10 till 11 UK time, which is 5 p.m. till 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll leave it there. As I say, I mean, it was extremely irritating, and it's just, it was hard to listen to, wasn't it? Listening to the hypocrisy. I mean, these people are so convinced of their own bullshit. I think that's what makes it hard to listen to. I think when they're spouting their BS in public, anyway, they convince themselves, so it sounds more true. But they're not kidding anybody. It's so transparent. It's such hypocrisy. So anyway, I'll leave it there. Do subscribe to the channel. I haven't done a lot of videos in recent months, but I'm hoping to get back doing more. And like and share the videos as well, of course.
There is a strategy. The Prime Minister is the last thing standing between ending the Brexit enterprise entirely. He can expect no quarter. Absolutely.